Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, we got some economic news today. Should be interesting, but that means that some of our session, because JOLTS doesn't come out until 8 o'clock, right? So might be a slow session for us. Overall, though, looking at the DOM coming in here, I'm seeing a decent amount of activity and liquidity. So here's hoping it'll be good. Let's come over to the charts. Check out where we're at. Here's my volume profile. Okay, so here we got the Treasuries. Yesterday, relatively tight day. Pretty much everything that was interesting happened during our session. And it was kind of like a slow move down and then like reversal back up to the top, which I believe was entirely endogenous. Just like maybe some market makers getting stopped out or something. Now here in the overnight session, a little bit of back and forth, but they do appear to be positioned long. Oh, and Octavia says that he's positioned long. We should probably get the, like, what are our key levels above us? Even though I don't think I would be taking any trades before JOLTS, but we'll see. There is a possibility. S&P 500 taking a little bit of a breather from the overnight yesterday. So they gave up most of the gains in the overnight, but then kind of stabilized through the day. We're slightly lower this morning. Oil taking a little bit bigger of a hit. Again, the Saudis came out and started talking about increasing oil supply and OPEC and all that sort of stuff. It seems that they do not want oil to be above 65. So we should keep that in mind in case they get there again. Like above 65 is where the governments start stepping in and doing stuff. Okay. Gold and silver. Well, gold took a big dip overnight. I didn't really see anything in my news squawk about that, so that's kind of curious. What about copper? Copper, a little bit of a pullback as well. I'm going to bet that this has something to do with the dollar, though, doesn't it? Yeah, well, we are seeing a little recovery in the yen, but not a dramatic move in the dollar. And there was also something in Bitcoin, wasn't there? Yes. Okay, so, but I actually, this is actually interesting in Bitcoin. So why is this interesting in Bitcoin? Because Michael Saylor came out and bought some more. So they came out, they made a big buy. They're kind of making a big to-do about it again. But Bitcoin didn't actually move all that much. Because I still think that Michael Saylor is how this all comes tumbling down at some point. Because there will be some event or some sequence of events that causes the Bitcoin price to really take a hit and forces Michael Saylor to sell. And then once everybody realizes that he's selling, it's just down from there. But we'll see. There has been some movement there. Okay. So, for the news, we do have Fed's Collins speaking. We've got also from the UK Central Bank and the EU Central Bank. Lagarde is speaking. Kind of more towards the top of the hour. Also, today is Chicago PMI. So this is the one we got to remember. I often forget. Chicago PMI comes out 3 minutes early to subscribers. So you will see a move before the news that doesn't make sense. And I was like, what is that? That is the people that subscribe to that report getting it first. Okay. So that's one that can kind of be an edge for you as a retail trader, just knowing that that happens early, because a lot of retail traders don't know that. And then, of course, at the top of the hour, JOLTS and CB consumer confidence. But JOLTS, I think, is going to be a pretty big one. They're looking for a reading of 7.2 million versus a previous reading of 7.181. I don't know. If it was lower than 7.2, that would be bad for the markets. But my own reading on things is that maybe job openings slightly increased. Like, I think maybe we get like a 7.25. Okay, so Uzi says that our immediate target is 23.5 to 25.5. Okay. Based on the regular session and the overnight session. Well, that is tight. That is very, very tight. And kind of makes me even less desirable for a trade here, because, like, man, there's not a lot of upside in it, is there? Subscribe where? Oh, I don't know. You can come here over here and let's see here. Pull up Forex Factory, and then here's Chicago PMI. You open up the detail on it. This comes from ISM Chicago Incorporated. Chicago.ismworld.org. And then somewhere in here you can buy the subscription to get it early. Or maybe you have to connect with them. Jobs. No. Membership/join. Join, renew. Maybe it's that. Anyways. Basically, the banks get it, but we don't. Right? You know, I was thinking about this today. I don't know what it was. I think I saw somebody was talking about, like, does the Trump administration engage in insider trading? And they were talking about the situation earlier in the year where basically the whole plan to, like, backtrack on the tariffs basically leaked. And then they said, no, that's not what's going to happen. And then, like, the next day, actually, that was what happened. Do you guys remember that? Yeah. And they were looking at it and they were like, see, here is like the insiders getting in. And it was like one of those things where it was kind of like, no, because that's not what happened. Like that volume where they were saying these are the insiders getting in. No. That was the news leaked on the news squawks. Like, the whole market knew at that point and was trading on it. Did the administration come in and say, no, that's not what's happening because their insiders weren't placed? Or was it just because they still had, like, negotiations going on and stuff like that? You can never know. But here's what I do know. At the bank, getting information relevant to their trading. I'm not going to say insider information because it's not necessarily insider information, right? Insider information is like relevant information about a company that belongs to the company and the company controls the release of. Okay? But there are things like if you're a farmer and your crop is not doing very well that year, you're going to want to potentially sell or well, you wouldn't want to sell in that particular situation, would you? Because you know the price would go up. But you could, go and do actions in the market to hedge your crop, knowing if the crop is going really well or not. So I guess really the scenario would be if you're a farmer. Let me start over. If you're a farmer and the crop is going really, really well, and so there's going to be a lot of crops coming out at harvest time. and the prices aren't going to be as good as they are now. So you would like to sell at current prices. Then you go out onto the futures market and you sell at the current prices so that you can get the current price. You know something that not everybody else knows because you know stuff about your crops. And the farmer is allowed to trade on that information. Like if the farmer wasn't allowed to trade on that information, there would be no point in having a futures market for wheat because those are the primary people that market is there to serve. So you are allowed to trade on information that not everybody has. Don't trade on material, non-public information about companies. And then when you get into, there is government information. Is that public or private information, or what is the deal with that? And that's maybe kind of a legal gray zone because honestly, the law does not prohibit it, but most people think that it is illegal or should be illegal, right? But I can tell you with certainty that getting information like that at the bank wasn't just like, one time Obama called them up and no, this was like a weekly or daily thing, getting information. And they had rules about it. They had rules like sometimes we got tipped, but that means that we were crossed because that's information that we're not allowed, that it is illegal to trade on. So then you're not allowed to trade, like even after that event, you're not allowed to trade it because you're crossed, right? There's other ones where they know like, okay, something is going to happen at this time, so they don't do anything until that time. And then there are other ones where it's like they're full on allowed to do it, especially in the currencies. Especially in the currencies, you get this information and there's nothing stopping you from doing it. Okay. And beyond that, you have to realize that this is why markets exist and why markets are so effective, is that it provides an incentive for people to take the information that they have and disseminate it to the rest of the market. So even though there are rules about insider trading, it's not absolute. And quite frankly, if you as a retail trader don't think that you have information and knowledge about a particular market that the other retail traders in that market don't have, you probably shouldn't be trading that market. Probably shouldn't be trading that market. Maybe I need to make a short about that or something. It's kind of, I don't know. I've made a couple of shorts in the past week about the Charlie Kirk situation and about the shooting over the weekend. But then I'm like, well, maybe I need to get back to more market stuff. So then I've kind of thought, well, maybe I can just do whatever I feel like on TikTok and I can keep the YouTube to trading stuff. So maybe I just make it a YouTube specific video. I don't know. Which also makes me wonder. So here's something that's going on that I think has potential consequences for all sorts of things, businesses, markets, etc., etc. But I'm really not sure where it goes or what to do with it. Maybe you guys have some ideas about where to go and what to do with it. But we are seeing a lot of purchases of really big platforms and or big changes in really big platforms. Like even on YouTube, I'm seeing a lot of people say that they're very concerned about their home being on YouTube because quite frankly, historically, YouTube has been the best place. YouTube has been the best on these kind of community sort of issues. They did not have issues to the same degree that other places did. Even though they still had issues because a lot of people got infractions or taken off completely because of sharing inconvenient information about COVID. So, but now they're like concerned that YouTube is going to be overwhelmed by artificial intelligence slop content, which does kind of feel like a thing. OpenAI apparently wants to create like a TikTok that is just only AI generated content, which is kind of interesting. Well, probably because they want to be able to use it for their reinforcement learning, right? Make their algorithms better. Know which kind of content actually does well. Because when you look at the AI slop, I don't know if like, I don't think the AI slop is getting better because there's no way for them to take the information that they get from how the video does and feed it back into the model, right? AI slop is terrible, and the AI ads are worse than... Of course, YouTube is going to be filled with AI slop. Like, I felt like if there was any platform that would work hard to prevent that sort of thing, it would be YouTube. But what I'm getting from YouTube right now is kind of like this contradictory messaging. They're like, we care about our creators. We don't want our platform to just be filled with AI slop. But then they turn around and they add every kind of AI slop tool they possibly can into the platform, right? So there's definitely these people, project managers and whatnot, that are like, well, we need to put AI in our stuff, and they're just slapping it in there even though it doesn't help anybody. But YouTube has been like the only platform that I really feel like understands what it takes to have a creator community and like nurture and create a good spot for that creator community. And there are more concerns. I'm not going to say that it's for sure going away or anything, but there are more concerns about YouTube may be continuing to be that place than at any other time. Right? Okay. Then on the TikTok side, TikTok is being sold to the US, and it's going to be jointly owned by Oracle and some other investors. And I really strongly get the impression that the reason they want to buy TikTok is because they believe that TikTok is a tool by China to influence US public opinion. And I kind of think that it is a tool used by China to influence US public opinion. Yeah, Newsy says Israel. I mean, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theory stuff, but Bibi himself did say things about this stuff recently. Okay? So like he understands that it's used, and he believes that TikTok was used against Israel. Right? Well, wasn't it already proven? I don't know if it actually was. I mean, it seems to me that it was proven, but like that's still classified information within the intelligence community or something like that, right? Because everybody that would be in the know on this stuff, they talk about it in that manner, like that. Talk about it in a way that we knew that it was like, should we call it a psyop? I don't know what we would call it. Yeah, nobody cared about TikTok's influence until October 7th, and I wouldn't say that that's accurate. But October 7th definitely was a spot where it turned into like, this is like an existential threat to some countries, apparently, right? It definitely amped up after October 7th, right? But there was a lot of discussion from day one about TikTok and the influence that China and what China could potentially be doing with it. It's been interesting because like, I feel like TikTok has been a better place for conservative content than like almost anywhere else. And I kind of wonder about that with China. It's like, Do they like that? Because China, it seems to me that China, and especially Russia, I think this is more of a Russia thing than China thing, but I think that China is involved in it too, that they want to see division amongst Americans because they think it makes America weaker. So they're like, oh, we want to have really aggressive content from both sides so that they fight. But the upside of that was that TikTok ended up being a better place for conservative content. Yeah, TikTok showed Chinese students math equations and learning even when they didn't want to see it. In America, we see all the violence and nudity, even if you didn't want to. Yeah. It was demonstrably true. It was less than 3 months before Congress unanimously decreed the yeah. Like it was a thing. I just want to say it was a thing before that, but something changed after October 7th. Yes, because we got so much anti-Israeli content after October 7th. Well, October 7th should have been like a everybody rally around Israel sort of a thing, and what has happened, at least amongst public perception in the United States, is that public perception of Israel went down after October 7th. And TikTok is blamed. And it does seem to me that it played a major factor. Yeah, that was obvious. But I mean, I think they knew before that, too. Don't you think? There was another time before, I think it was before October 7th, but there was this one point where it was like, and I don't remember like what you saw in the headlines, but again, it was like one of those things where it was just like all of the sudden the entire intelligence community seemed unified against TikTok, right? So the same thing happened about globalism towards the end of Donald Trump's first term. Like, you know, the whole thing, they'd been fighting the trade war, and then they were like, okay, we need to pause the trade war because we need to get reelected, essentially, right? And so they kind of put like a pause on it, and we're like, oh, okay, so maybe he'll return back to it in his second term, except for they didn't get reelected. But then after that, before the elections actually happened, there was this point where like all of the sudden the global intelligence community decided that globalism was a problem and that the United States and other Western European countries needed to start becoming more self-reliant. It was just like they got like some information about what China and Russia are trying to do or something that made them go, okay, like actually Donald Trump is right. Or not that Donald Trump is, probably they would never admit that Donald Trump is right, but that okay, we do need to do something about this. And it was just like all, and you don't know what, but I guarantee you something was released over there and it happened. And there was definitely points like that with TikTok before October 7th. But then when October 7th happened, it became an existential thing, right? If you think about all the moves that have happened, so what would you consider moves? I don't know, because in my mind, it was basically, there was October 7th, and then the Israelis started to counterattack in Gaza. I've been wondering about this one, because was it yesterday or the day before that Donald Trump and Bibi kind of released their quote-unquote peace plan, where it was basically like a staggered withdrawal from Gaza and an international peace
peacekeeping force stepping in, basically in exchange for the hostages and Hamas disarming, an international peacekeeping force there, and then all of the countries would come in and put like massive amounts of development into Gaza. I wonder about that because how do I put this? Like, you gotta be careful about how you say things like this. Not just because you might get canceled or anything, but I really feel that the way that we, like, the tenor of our conversation online does matter. I've never really been on board with these people that are like, the internet should be where everybody is able to say whatever kind of sick and offensive thing they possibly can, yada, yada, yada. Like, I want there to be free speech online. I want people to be able to discuss things online. But I also think that the type of discussion that happens online, they can influence people that are not all there, that are crazy and already on the edge, etc., to can inspire them to go and do awful things. I really think that's what has been happening. And so I always try to be as careful as I can about these things, and you got to be particularly careful when we're talking about Israel. Okay? Because like it is kind of like a, I don't know how you'd put it, like an Attack on Titan kind of a situation. I kind of feel like Attack on Titan was written basically to be about Israel, wasn't it? Like either genocide or be genocided is kind of the situation there. I would have thought that they were just going to go in and finish it. So why are they pushing for a deal? Maybe it's just because of international pressure. Maybe because Donald Trump really, really wants a deal. But I'm surprised that they didn't already go in and just finish it. You know? I don't know about you, but if it was big fucking illegal to talk shit about me, I wouldn't expect that to make more people like me. I don't know, Uzi. I really think that if man, I'm always like, I'm gonna say something and I know that some people aren't gonna like it. I used to be that I was the kind of person that would just say the thing because I'm ADHD. And now I have like the executive functioning to stop and be like, well, not everybody wants to hear it, but I'm still going to say it anyways, because it is what I believe. It seems to me that if you are a minority in some way, which is to say that there are significantly less of people like you compared to the general population, and you are still successful, that you will be hated. That's just the way that it is. Because I cannot think of a demographic that is like really small relative to the population. I don't think Asians really fit into this category. They're probably too big to fit into this category. But I think Mormons fit into this category. I think Israelis fit into this category. If you're a really small minority and you're still massively successful, you're hated. No matter what. Like, that's just the way that people work. Are you actively day trading? Yeah, well, not at the moment because we've got a big jobs report, and so we're not expecting too many good opportunities at the moment. That doesn't affect me. I don't care what Israel does in Gaza. That's between them, but that doesn't imply I should just ignore that criticizing them seems to be seen as this weird catalyst.
that activates authoritarian tendencies in a government. Well, but I mean, what would you want them to do? Just let people hate Israel. Here's the thing. Like here's how I think about this. Here's what's been going through my head. Okay, there are people out there that are like Christian nationalists. Okay, now this is kind of like a loaded term because some people seem to think that a Christian nationalist just means that you're a really patriotic American and happen to be Christian. That's not what it means. What it means is that you believe that the United States is a Christian country and that the interests of Christians should be put above the interests of other groups, and that other parts of the world are being taken over by Muslim nations, and so America is the one place that will have to be a refuge for Christianity at the point at which Europe is completely taken over by invaders, and they start to do what they're doing in Nigeria to Europeans, where they just, Muslims get together and just go and slaughter Christians. That's what Christian nationalism is, okay? And then there is a shooting at a Mormon church, and at first it's like, they are attacking Christians. But then everybody comes along and is like, oh no, actually, Mormons aren't Christians. Okay, well, Mormons would disagree with that statement. But why is it that all of the sudden, particularly on right-wing forums, because it's especially if I go on the Donald and there was any thread about this, granted, now that we know for sure that the guy was a right-winger, nobody wants to talk about it on the Donald. But, although not as much discussion about it on Reddit either. So, interesting. But every time that it came up on the Donald, there was always those comments, well, but Mormons aren't actually Christians. So what are they implying there? Oh, there was this awful tragedy, but actually it doesn't matter because they were Mormons. So it's okay to murder the Mormons. That's what I'm hearing. It's like, okay, these people, they want America to be a Christian nationalist country, but they don't think that Mormons are Christians. What does that mean about where Mormons are supposed to sit in this world of theirs that they want to have? This Christian nationalist future that they have envisioned. Makes me kind of wonder. All I know is that these people are not completely on my side, right? I might agree with them about a lot of things. Like, I mean, ultimately, I'm a constitutionalist. I think that it's just we follow the Constitution. Okay? And we should be careful about who we allow into our country, that not allow that to change the nature of the country. Okay? But ultimately, the most important thing is we follow the Constitution. And that's what I care about. Right? So when I go out there and I see stuff online, let me tell you what, man. You think that there's shit about Israelis? You cannot go and have a discussion about Mormons without hateful content about Mormons showing up. You cannot. It is a real thing. There is some real prejudice about Mormons. And I tell you absolutely that there are situations where you're not going to get the job because you're a Mormon. Like there have been some situations where I'm looking through applying for remote jobs, and the recruiter is like oh, you're super, super great and you really, really fit. And then you go in and you get into the interview and they find out you're from Utah, and it's like immediate change. Totally happens, I think. Totally think it happens. And I do believe that that discussion that you see online, like, negatively affects Mormon people. Like, that there's going to be more discrimination. And I don't think that violence against Mormons has been a big thing. But now, like, what has happened is there was this big event, and there's going to be copycats, and they're going to go and look online and seeing the conversation, and it's going to fuel them. So I think that it does have an impact. So, and it's the same thing for Israel. So what are they supposed to do? Just allow the hate to grow? Because both of us, both Mormons and Israelis, have seen that situation where people just tried to completely end them. Right? Like, it does happen. And I think that it's human nature. Like, you know, some people seem to have this idea that Jews in World War II was like the first time that genocide ever happened. No. Genocide happens all the time. And it happens still today. And really, like, it's kind of like how quickly does it happen? It's like if they're really fast about it and they genocide everybody before the world kind of realizes what's going on, they kind of get away with it. Because it's like built into human nature. Like, humans survived versus other species because of genocide in some cases. Like, when you get like you get two competing civilizations with cultures that are directly opposed to each other like that, you either learn to get along or one side's going to genocide the other. And if it's a situation where you just can't get along, somebody's going to get genocided. So I just don't feel like that we can, you know, there's always going to be somewhere online where you can say anything. But I don't think that should be allowed on mainstream platforms. And I see a lot of stuff on Reddit that I don't think should be allowed. I see stuff on Reddit about Mormons, about Jews, about other groups. And they get all uppity about conservative hate. And then they just allow liberal hate to run rampant. There's some really, especially like the open communists on Reddit. And the tankies, some real crazy shit is said on Reddit, and they're just like, yeah, it's no big deal. I think it matters. And you would say, well, so back to the argument that, like, the reason I brought that up, and it's like, well, not allowing people to say certain things about you, that's not going to make people like you more. My position from it is I'm not asking for some special protection that isn't afforded to anybody else. There's rules, and if you break the rules, then your comment's going to get deleted or you're going to get banned. And in terms of, like, is that going to make people like you or hate you less? I think that is just kind of the nature of things, that if you're a minority and you're successful, that you'll be hated. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do that or not. In terms of, like, people liking you. Because you're always going to have to fight that fight. I read that guy had an axe to grind with the church, because I think so. The headline that we got yesterday was that there was a city council member in that town that was campaigning and going door to door and had a conversation with that guy. And for some reason, that guy just brought up Mormons and really, really hated them, because he lived in Utah and he had a girlfriend that was Mormon. I don't know anything about like that he married them and the church sided with his ex in the divorce or anything like that. But just that he had had an axe to grind against the Mormons. It's unclear if he was ever a member, but yes, he had an axe to grind specifically against the Mormons. I think so. But I kind of think that you have somebody that has an axe to grind against the Mormons, and then they go online and they read stuff, that it kind of fuels it, and it like fuels their psychosis and can drive them to the point where they think that going and committing an act like that is like a possible thing to do. I don't know in this particular case, because was he actually on? I mean, there's a good case. There's a good chance that he just straight up wasn't online, right? So I don't know about that one. Well, like go back to the Charlie Kirk shooter, right? This guy was chronically online. It's kind of funny to me. Like the guy was clearly left leaning. The family says that he's left leaning. We have evidence, like text messages and everything, that allegedly him admitting that it was because he thought that Charlie Kirk was spewing hate. Which, if you're on Reddit, you know what that means, right? Is that not completely accepting and affirming transgender ideology is considered being hateful. So that's what Charlie Kirk did. He said, "I think that doing these surgeries on children is a bad thing. Adults can make their own decisions, but I don't think that it's something that's actually healthy for them." And he was pretty... That was the thing that I think made Charlie Kirk unique compared to the other conservative talking head influencers, was his willingness to talk against gender ideology. We can call it that, because there's a bunch of different ideas. I don't want to say like all of them, but he would argue against those ideas. Him and Matt Walsh are the two that are like really adamantly about that. Because a lot of other conservative influencers are kind of like, well, I'm kind of against it for religious reasons, and we're not allowed to bring our religion into political discussions, so they just don't. Anyways, so we know the ideology of the shooter. But that was the point. I spent a little bit too much time on that particular point. Next point was going to be, what you're seeing on Reddit now is they're saying, oh, well, we don't really know the political ideology of the shooter. Right? Destiny is getting online saying that. Okay, well, we don't know what his opinion on universal health care is. Sure. But that's not the part that matters to this discussion, because the whole point of the discussion is, how does the online discussion affect and possibly lead to people committing acts like this? So what matters is not what his opinion on universal health care was. What matters is, what communities, what is he in, and what kind of discussion was going on there that could potentially fuel this sort of a thing. He was on Reddit, and I absolutely would see people on Reddit saying, these people are hateful and somebody needs to take them out. It's absolutely discussion that was had. And there's no doubt in my mind that if Reddit didn't exist, that kid wouldn't have done that. Or let's say Reddit didn't exist and there wasn't some replacement, right? That whatever the replacement was, that kind of discussion was just never allowed to be there. I don't think it would have. I really think that there is this line of discussion on the left that is fueling that kind of violence. I really do. And there's been more left-wing violence than ever before this year, and I think it's in part because of the online discussion. It's really quite scary to me, because Republicans have always, or let's say conservatives. You know, I don't know if conservatives in the United States are necessarily conservatives in a traditional sense, because it's not like they want the monarchy to come back, you know? But I think that like your constitutionalist will say that there are situations where your rights are under attack and that they have to be secured with blood, which I think is intended to be a call against government. Okay. Sometimes rebellion against the government is necessary. Okay. But what I'm starting to see now is people justifying terrorism. People justifying domestic terrorism. That there is absolutely people that are like, when that discussion is going to happen, they're going to look the other way. It's like, well, they're not outright. They're kind of being sly about it. They're not saying it outright, so we're going to look the other way. That's what happens. You don't think that discussion has an impact? So I think it does. Not allowing things is what got us to where we are. I mean, there's the whole weird thing is that the things that were allowed versus the things that weren't allowed is just absolutely bonkers to me. That it was, if you shared scientific data about COVID or the vaccines that was inconvenient to the current administration's chosen narrative on the subject, you were going to get a strike. But then you can go and say all sorts of hateful things about Republicans and it's allowed. That's crazy. And, you know, you're never going to be able to get rid of it, right? But I just don't think that stuff should be happening on, like, the premier online platform, you know? Like these, like what we call them, neo-Nazis. Like, they're out there. They're on 4chan. They're on Gab. I really don't think that they're a major threat to anything. Because they're stupid. Everybody knows that they're stupid, and there's not very many of them. Are they going to grow in numbers because we force them into the dark? I don't think so. Like, here's the thing. We really need to consider the tribal nature of humans. That's, I think, one of the biggest problems in our society, is that we have discovered a bunch of things that really make our society more efficient and more prosperous, like the internet, like being able to share information quickly. That's made us massively more productive, right? But none of that stuff has taken into account at all the tribal nature of humans. Humans did not evolve to be part of a massive worldwide system of billions of people. Humans did not evolve to live very, very close to people that are substantially different from them. And I think problems are arising because we've kind of been ignorant to the effects of that. Like, I don't think that the primary focus of companies in the internet space should be creating the platform that every person is on and everybody sees the same thing. I don't think that that's good for people. I think that the focus should be on small communities of like 200 people. Like a close, tight-knit community where you know most of those people. You know what they're like. When they say something, you can kind of take who they are into account for it. And you're going to be careful about what you say because you know that that's going to follow you forever. And then there's some degree of control. Like you wouldn't go down to your local church congregation and say some of the shit that I see people say on Reddit. You know, because those are people that live next to you, right? Being afraid of people agreeing them. Okay, what if this? What if I could prove empirically that allowing a certain kind of discussion about let's just make it like really specific, right? Let's just say that enforcing certain rules about what you can say about Jews and what you cannot say about Jews objectively decreases the amount of violence against Jews. Like we can empirically prove that it reduces the violence. Shouldn't we do it? Or is there some other thing that we're losing in the process that's more valuable? Because I think that the reducing the violence would be a bigger benefit. Because it sounds like Uzi kind of just doesn't agree that aggressive moderation on the. Well, you know why I come down on this side of it? Because I don't. Very few people have spent more time online than myself. Okay. And I have found that the communities that were the most fun, that were the most successful, that had the best communities, like good vibes, and people got together and did amazing things together, were always the ones where the moderators were the most hard-nosed. Basically, if you came in and you did anything even remotely spammy, you were gone. You especially if you were a new voice, new person, new name, and you broke the rules to even the slightest degree, you were gone. In those communities, people were afraid of breaking the rules. It wasn't and what would happen is, as a community got bigger and you'd have people that have been there for a while and are kind of known, and then they kind of realize, oh, I can kind of push the rules. Yeah, a beginner person, nobody's ever seen posts before, they do anything against the rules, they're going to get banned right away. But because I'm a known quantity, I can kind of push the rules, troll people, insult people, have really what is the word? You're fighting with people, right? And you can continue to do that until the moderators give you a warning. And then you lie low for 3 months, and then you come back and you do it again, right? And when that started happening, that's what destroyed communities. So that's why I come down on the way that I do, and that's why I run the Discord the way that I do. Is like, if I don't have very many rules, but if you break the rules, you're gone right away. So I think that the way that you moderate and the rules that you pick matter. And I think that you should, you know, you should be held accountable to the rules. Like, the whole problem that I have is that I don't think that Reddit follows their rules fairly. I don't think that any of the social media companies have followed their rules fairly. Facebook has kind of started to do that because they have like this court where you can, like, you know, if a post got deleted or whatever, you can like appeal the thing, and there's like an appeals court, and it can go up to their top court, and then they can decide whether it's against the rules or not. I kind of like that. You know, this is again back to what we were saying yesterday, that like there are some situations where like these companies like Facebook and Google maybe have a bigger impact in people's lives than the government does. And the problem is that with the government, like, you have rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, and with a corporation, you got nothing. I think that that these companies should be forced to hold certain rights. Like, there should be like certain rules that are like, you cannot, like, I think that it should just be straight up against the law to moderate speech on a popular social media platform based on ideology. To say, well, you know, if you're a conservative, we're going to ban you. Period. Right? There can be communities that can do that, but like if you are like a, I don't know what the word would be. They'd come up with a good legal term for it, right? Like systemically important social media networks or whatever, right? I think that Reddit and Facebook should not be allowed to ban people based on ideology. Subreddit could, but not the platform itself. Right? Then they should be held to that. And then there should be like a system whereby people can say, this has been happening to me, and appeal to it. Because right now you can't do anything about it. Sure is, well, you know, so can we talk about the market a little bit? Something I've been noticing happening lately, both directions, is you will get something where kind of goes flat. Where's my pen? Hold on a second. It'll kind of go flat, and then zoop, whoop. You notice it's been doing that a lot? What's with that? It's kind of a weird thing, I think. And I'm kind of more used to, like, it's like this, and then it kind of, okay, oh, actually, we are going to do something. You know, like, that's probably a bad picture. Right. I expect there to be, like, if it goes from flat, then they start testing both sides, and then they decide to pick a direction and go. That hasn't been. Or they go like this, and then it's the meta order is coming. and then it does that, right? But instead, it's like an endogenous thing. It's like it's going flat. It's going flat. And then there's a little bit flat again, but then they puke. And it rebalances. And it's also weird to me that, well, I guess maybe this is just, hey, it's not summer anymore, you know? Like, the endogenous moves are decent winners. And some of them we could predict and trade. How much time do we got left? 30 minutes? I spent a really long time talking about that. But Uzi stopped arguing with me, so I don't know if there's anything more I can say about it. I should sum up my opinion. I think that there are some discussion that should not be allowed on mainstream platform. Most mainstream platforms do have rules against that kind of hateful discussion about specific groups, but they are not enforced fairly. It's kind of weird to think about it. Like if you come out and you're like, oh, we're just going to allow anything, like that kind of hurts your platform. Like that kind of precludes you from being able to be a mainstream platform. So instead, what happens is they put up these rules and then they just don't enforce them. And honestly, when it comes to Reddit in particular, I think it's entirely intentional. I think that the tech people over there, they're all far lefties. They kind of want some sort of a popular proletariat uprising of some sort. And they're allowing it to spread through Reddit, and it's bigger than it would be on its own without this platform like weaponizing and popularizing it. They're about to go here? Those last two ticks kind of seem a little... Well, I think that that's mostly because the S&P 500 started up here. So I don't want to read too much into that. Okay, and there was a little bit of an explosion there. That's kind of interesting. So did you see how, like, they tried to lift it there? But then when they lifted it, we also saw some volume go off at 19.5 and some volume go off at 18.5. So it's kind of like a little explosion of volume. A little pop. Let's recenter it. I think that's just because S&P is starting. Oh, we didn't turn on the robot, by the way. You really need to remind me to turn it on at the beginning of the session, guys, so that we're recording all of the level 2. Oh man, you know what we haven't talked about that I need to talk about? I don't know why I'm not that interested in it this time. The government shutdown. Can you guys believe what is happening with the government shutdown? So longs or shorts today? Well, I would say when we came in here, we were kind of biased on the long side, but there hasn't really been any long side on treasuries. So, but I really don't think that you're going to have much of an edge until after the jolts. You got jolts, and then the shutdown is basically tonight, right? So everything that I've seen suggests to me that a shutdown is essentially guaranteed at this point. I think that the market probabilities are still like in the 70% range, but I would mark it as like 95% chance that we have a shutdown. The Democrat Party has decided that they want to shut down. And it's really something else to, watch them come to that. Oh, okay. We got to remember the ISM is coming up here in 10 minutes. 9 minutes. Anyways, it's been really interesting to watch the Democrats as they've kind of evolved over the past year. At first, avoiding a government shutdown, then kind of realizing, oh, actually, there's not going to be a recession, so we won't be able to just use that. We need something else. And turning to the shutdown as their game changer. Which, you know what? Like with Republicans, there's been several cases here, right? Where Republicans used the shutdown as a bargaining chip to try and get something. Absolutely happened, right? Problem with that. Number one, it never worked for Republicans. They never got anything meaningful from those shutdowns. One. Two, the things that the Republicans were asking for were kind of things that, like, you know, most Americans would support, and it was kind of hurt Democrats to fight against them, even though in the end it didn't really amount to anything. But, you know, like, strategically it kind of made sense. The things that the Democrats want are unpopular things that are complete non-starters amongst like this. We need free healthcare for illegal immigrants. Are you kidding me? That's part of your demands? Like, wow. It's so crazy. And yet the Democrat Party has decided that the best course of action for them, the thing that's going to help their party the most, is to trigger a government shutdown. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has been preparing mass government firings. The government shuts down. There's nothing stopping him from firing basically like the Democrat Party's entire constituency. So, well, not their entire, but one of their strongest constituencies. Like, it's gonna really hurt the Democrat Party. It really is. The whole thing just seems crazy to me. Democrats think that the public will side with Democrats in the end. Maybe they do. But again, I can't remember a time where, like, the shutdown was really meaningful. I don't know, maybe when it was Obama, like 2018. Was it 2018? No, not 2018. Like 2 years before Trump. So like 2011? Let's see here. When were all of the government shutdowns?
Order submitted.
Yeah, 2013. Yes. It was 2013, and it really hurt the Republicans in the primaries in 2014. Yeah, that's what it was. All of the other times that it happened, including the 2018 one, like, nothing really came of it. That's interesting. When I'm looking here, like, past government shutdowns, 95, 96, 2013, 2018. Yeah, okay. I thought that there was another one in there, because I feel like we've talked about government shutdown here on stream more than once, but maybe it really was just in 2018. Must have been that it was just in 2018, and there was other ones where it came close, but it didn't happen, so we talked about it, and that's what I'm remembering. That must be what it is. For treasuries in particular, government shutdown is a difficult trade because there is risk off sentiment involved in it, but there is also, like, it's fiscally irresponsible sort of a thing going on. So some people are buying treasuries to hedge against uncertainty in the stock market going down. And some people are selling treasuries because they think that this means that the US credit rating is going to get worse. And it kind of just ends up being chaos. So for the treasuries, I don't think I've ever really gotten a really, really good trade. Not that there aren't big moves that you can take advantage of, and maybe from a technical perspective you can catch, but like an overarching swing trade from it, I've never really found that to be a good play. I just kind of sit on my hands. The S&P 500 may be a little bit different because like equity markets do react negatively to it, but then like that's just like a buy the dip opportunity in the past. So, but it's going to happen. And I honestly, on mainstream platforms, I don't see a lot of discussion about it, interestingly enough. I do kind of wonder if it's going to happen and everybody's just going to yawn. Like we'll come back here tomorrow and be like, you know, barely even notice anything's different. Okay, well, the treasuries seem to have come back to the center here at 20.5, which is kind of interesting because we've got a concave profile going on here, right? That's a little unusual. But that says to me that is a random distribution and says to me that there just isn't really a very good reason to trade today. So we just wait. We got 2 minutes before the ISM number gets released to subscribers. So problem is Treasury and equities have a positive correlation now. So I wouldn't look at it that way. Okay. So like I think the way that a lot of you'll see a lot of online discussion about correlations is, well, the equities and treasuries were negatively correlated, but recently they've been positively correlated. So if I think that equities are going to be hurt by the shutdown, then I think that treasuries are also going to sell, right? Yeah, it's like overly simplistic thinking, right? I would think of it in one of two ways. One is, what orders is it going to trigger? So that's why I kind of listed it out. It's like, well, some people will be hedging because treasuries are going down or because it increases risk off sentiment, and some people are going to be selling because it hurts the U.S. credit rating. That the chances that the government will pay the debt back, there's a higher chance of that happening, and so people sell treasuries. So those are like the two major flows that you have to consider, right? Or the other way you can think of it as like, yeah, there's a correlation. Okay, so there was the news, by the way. Doesn't look like they're really moving from it, though. Like they pulled. The market makers pulled, but I'm not really seeing any volume go off or anything. But like if you're like a George Soros type, what they do is they go back at when was the last times that this happened, and what were the correlations in those particular situations. So basically, you can kind of say, in X situation, we tend to see the correlation be positive or negative, and you go that way, rather than this is what the correlation has been recently. Get what I mean? So in past government shutdowns, though, I would say that the correlations between them were iffy. Like I said, the treasuries in the past have been really messy around government shutdowns. There wasn't like a clear trade one way or the other. Yeah, it's a checkmate that Trump can balance the budget and legally permanently cut all the non-essential workers. Yeah. Is it a checkmate? I don't know. What would be the qualifications that would make it be a checkmate? It sure seems to me that the Trump stands to benefit. Trump stands to benefit if anybody benefits at all. And the Democrats stand to be hurt considerably. But they're going to do it anyways because Democrat constituents are basically demanding that they do something, and they want the shutdown. Which I do wonder how this will play into public sentiment. Because in the past, I think part of why maybe Republicans tend to get blamed for the shutdown, well, the primary reason that they get blamed for the shutdown is because the media is biased and just makes it all about Republicans, right? But I also think that something that plays into that is that Republicans love seeing the government shut down because ultimately they're about reducing the size of government. And so shutting the government down completely is like seen as a good thing for them, right? But if in this case, if Democrats are the ones that are like, we want this, that could change it. That could change it. So we'll see how it plays out, but I'm a little bit, I'm not looking forward to it, if you can't tell. I'm not looking forward to it. Okay, so there's the news coming out. It was 40.6 versus a estimated reading of 43.3, so lower than expected. 40 is really bad, by the way, because that is like a, one of those indexes where 50 is equal. So 40 is a contraction, but 40 is really bad. We should pull up the history of that report, actually, because how bad is that? Okay, historically speaking, it's not terrible. Man. But it has been bad and bad for a long time. Except for there's one data point where it was at 53 in November of 2023. That's kind of interesting. Okay, we're going to get the jolts at the top of the hour. So I want to warn you here. Oh, have I told you guys this? This is an important thing that I got to tell you about. When I was reading through my news squawk this morning, they highlighted the possibility that the non-farms jobs report on Friday is delayed because of the government shutdown. I cannot recall when there was a government shutdown the last two times. It was for multiple weeks. Did it cross the period when there was a non-farms report? Because I don't ever remember the non-farms report being delayed like that. I don't ever remember the non-farms report being delayed like that. And is it being delayed meaning like, actually we'll do it next week rather than this week because we didn't have enough staff to prepare the report? Or like, is it like, well, it just won't come out exactly at 8:30? Or is it like we can't release it until the government is opened back up again? Like, so I have no clue how that works, but there are people speculating that report could be late. It may depend. I think that maybe the reason why they're saying that is because Donald Trump is kind of not too fond of that department. He doesn't think that they're doing a good job. So they might get more of the brunt of like the layoffs and everything. So if they delay the report, it could be a long, So because of that, the market is putting more importance on the other labor market measures that we get. So even though I kind of think that the JOLTS jobs opening number is kind of nonsense, the market is probably going to react very strongly to it. So buckle up, prepare yourselves. This is going to be a move. And it could surprise them. Now, do I think So first of all, I do kind of think I think that I've seen more job openings this month than last month. Or last month than this month. Like, this isn't a September number, right? This is it? I think this is the August number. And I think that there was more openings in August than there was July. So that would put me at like maybe 7.25. But I'm kind of hesitant to put that as like my own estimate because this number has been very far off from the estimate as of late. So I would say high opportunity for surprise. And do I think that the market would react more strongly to a good surprise versus a bad surprise? I think that if it was a bad surprise, that the market would probably react stronger. But there might be a lot of people offsides if it's a good. Like, I think that if it's negative, that you'd see more orders overall. But if it's positive, you probably see some existing positions get screwed up. Now, another interesting thing is, remember that our levels above us are from 22.5 to 25.5, depending on whether you're looking starting from the regular session or the extended session. And the stop out zone in like relative positioning for the market makers is at 22.5 as well. So if it ends up being a bad number, these treasuries could really, really spike. It might be like a really quick spike and it comes back, but they might go way further than you'd expect because it's going to be blowing through some key levels. We still got 8 minutes. While we're waiting, let's just over here, see if there's any interesting headlines that have come through that I missed. Poland arrests Ukrainian driver over Nord Stream sabotage explosions. That's interesting. That's really interesting. I don't remember. Do you remember what the outcome of that was? I want to say that it was that Biden did kind of order it, but that Ukraine carried it out. No, I don't think so. Because wasn't the whole thing that like the journalist that gave the scoop? By the way, less liquidity. They're not. They decided they're not going to put liquidity on after the PMI. They're just going to wait until jolts. The guy that had the scoop, he said that it was like U.S. Special Forces that did it. So if they're arresting this Vladimir Z guy, that means that either that journalist was wrong on some points or I should look into that. Because that's interesting. I only remember that at the time I said that the journalist looks reputable and that it's probably not false. Mysterious drones in Denmark trigger civilian UAV ban ahead of EU summit. Dude, with the UAVs things, I kind of wonder if more restrictions against civilian UAVs are going to happen. That's probably inevitable. But not too much new news, fortunately. First thing I see when I pop over to Reddit is a post in SRE. 99.9% uptime sounds good until you do the math. Yeah. Because it basically comes down to like 45 minutes of downtime a month. Which is like, on one hand, you might think like it's both good and bad. Like, having only 43 minutes of downtime a month is actually kind of hard to hold. But then you're also thinking like, you know, I want my service to be more reliant than that. Probably what you actually want to target is 99.99% uptime. But that's for a very mature organization. Do they have the number already? I don't know. I think that they were having discussions and saying what's a reasonable SLA that we should set. Okay, let's do 99.9. And then the guy is looking at it and he's like, "Oh, actually, we would have already failed that for this month." It's like, that's what he's saying. Because they had an incident that was longer than 43 minutes in that past week. So with the places where I've done SRE, it's more complicated than that. Like, I don't think that there's been a situation where like the whole app was just completely unavailable. But what'll happen is like certain feature will be unavailable. That'll happen. That'll happen almost every day. At that place, that happened almost every day. Though I think we did. I think that I did a good job there and that we significantly improved that.
Order submitted.
Okay, well, my robot's taking a trade when I really don't think that it should. I have it set to like get out a minute before the news. It'll get out before the news, so probably just gonna lose. It's made money on these little trades.
Order canceled.
Oh. Okay. Donald Trump's talking about Canada being the 51st state again. Good grief. I tell you what, like, it's embarrassing to admit this, but when I first heard him say that, I kind of thought that that was like a throwaway thing, like nobody would take that seriously. I did not expect people to get so bent out of shape about that. and every time he says it, I just think it's hilarious. It's just, to me, it's hilarious trolling. I really don't think it's serious. But you know why it triggers them so much? Because there are, what do they call them? Principalities or whatever? No, that provinces. There are provinces in Canada that are talking very seriously about leaving. Because basically everybody is fed up with the central government. Because Canada is like, there's like population center over in the east, and then like the whole rest of the country is not very populated. Okay, so here we go. We'll stay for a minute afterwards, because I think this is a very important number, even though I think there's a lot of fake jobs out there, so I don't think that the job opening number that we have is actually realistic. But okay, so it's 7.22. Hey, so I was right, but not as much. So I thought 7.25, and it was actually 7.22. But I also said, I think that there's a higher possibility for a surprise, but we didn't get a surprise. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say though that overall that's bad. Okay, consumer confidence was 94.2 versus 96. I think that Jolts being where we thought they were going to be and a little bit better than last month, slightly hurts the chances for a rate cut. So it doesn't look like the market really wants to do a whole lot with it, but I'd favor a short. But I guess no trade. I'll leave the robot on. Maybe it will take some trades while I'm gone. I'll come back tonight and see what it did. But we got some more stuff coming. Government shutdown tomorrow, so we should have some stuff to talk about, right? Right. Or we can talk about Israel again. Okay, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Stay excellent, team.